So, we are back in the business, baby, and we got the Portuguese beast in the house, man of steel, whatever, and coach of the year. All these titles. What would you add to that list, Mr. Fred Malaquais?
Well, I wouldn't add titles, but like last year, I've basically been working as a coach. Like mainly rehab, sports medicine, and doing a bunch of all other stuff in sports.
Yeah.
So work-wise, has been that the path, let's say.
Yeah. You've been coaching for 10 years more plus?
Yeah, a little more, maybe like
14?
Yeah,
13?
about that.
13, yeah.
14, something around that, yeah.
Yeah. Originally from Portugal, Lisbon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, baby. It's a little bit different than Finland, and I know that it was a lady that brought you there, or here, I mean. But what was how did you even go into the path of, let's say, coaching? How did you ended up in this?
It was like kind of something that happened like natural,
Mm-hmm.
I remember being in high school and being interested to do something like regarding like in kind of genetics, chemistry, biology, something like that. And then I kind of was always interested about how the body works, about anatomy and physiology and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, okay, maybe it actually would be cool to do something with sports.
Yes.
And like the thing is, like, I don't know about you when you were on that phase that you have to actually choose what you want to specifically study later on,
Yes, yeah.
But you don't really understand like what possibilities you actually have in that subject.
Yeah, that is true. And it's like I kind of, in a way, it's almost fucked up that it's you're 16 usually or something like that in Finland when you have to decide, what would you want to study? And that, in a way, affects the rest of your life. So it's kind of an early age to do so. So definitely I can, even at least for myself, say that I didn't understand like any of the possibilities that I could become, or maybe I had some ideas, but really no.
Like I don't know not sure how you do in Finland, like in Portugal, basically, like the last years of high school, you kind of choose or you go like more part to sciences. That involves like almost everything. And then you have like languages, and then you have like art, basically.
Yeah.
And you have like one that is more specified for economy, but like almost no one chooses, because if you do science, you can just go to math or economy or whatever, so.
Yeah. Those are at least tied to a science and stuff. It's a little bit different. Like, of course, arts is not that science-based at all, basically. But yeah, those are... were you good at school, by the way? Like, those are kind of maybe hard subjects and everything. But I could see that you could be a little bit a rebel, but you were a good school boy.
No, yeah, I was quite good, actually. Yeah.
All right. How is basic, or like of course you don't have any experience maybe of other schools, but what is the school in Lisbon?
I think it's like quite straightforward in a way how things work. I don't know if it's that different from Finland in a way.
Probably not, but
yeah, I think within like Europe, things don't change that much. In that sense, you have basically a curriculum that is set already, and you go through the years, and then later on you kind of specialize a little bit.
Yeah.
Or maybe at least the matters you study, are more directed for what you think you want to know.
Yeah.
Then if it's actually that's a different story, right? But
yeah, it is. So I was just thinking, is there something like because I've heard that at least maybe in some places maybe more in very poor countries, but I don't think Lisbon is that, or like Portugal is that poor or anything.
Yeah, no.
But like the schools sometimes can be really kind of wild, that the fucking kids are causing havoc, and
I think it depends like a lot where you are living.
Well, that is true also.
Like if you are in a kind of considered, let's say, bad neighborhood or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more wild, that.
Yeah. I don't like. I've been to Lisbon twice. I don't know where is would there be, or at least from, of course, I don't know all the places, but I didn't see that kind of bad neighborhoods there. But maybe there is. But I just know.
Yeah, there's a couple like
Odivelas and Bairro Alto and all these places.
Yeah, maybe there's a place a little bit more rough.
Yeah,
but in a way, when you're a kid, you learn not to step up, and
Don't
like I had some friends that they studied like all their lives in a private college. They never studied on a like public school.
Yeah.
So they never had to cope with certain situations, like nothing big, but just enough to go on the street if you see someone a little bit looking a bit more shady, and they were like, oh no, let's go to the other side of the sidewalk, because I don't feel comfortable. That kind of stuff,
Like, well, it's good to learn to handle these kind of things because those situations happen basically anywhere in the world, or can happen anywhere in the world. So, and I think you're almost like a easy victim if you're too much of like that type of let's go. I don't want
church boy, kind of, with your Bible on the side and walking.
Just like no. But so after high school, went to the science part, and then found some, or what did you choose, or how did you then kind of go to sports? And I know you at least have studied all the anatomy and everything, and or where did you study then, like actual coaching, and how did it turn from
like
high school?
I started studying at college, like at the Human Kinetics University in Lisbon.
All right.
Probably like one of the most known universities for sport in Portugal.
Yeah,
was actually where Mourinho studied. And then I remember at the time I was a swimmer for many years. Like I started swim like maybe when I was like I don't remember exactly, but like somewhere between 6 months to a year or something old.
Okay.
And then I did swimming until I was like 13.
Okay.
And I got so fed up with it, that I had to do something else. And then I saw on the other pool where we used to try, and the older guys were training like water polo.
Okay. Yeah.
And then me and my sister at the time, we switched to water polo. It was so fun. Like super physical, but so fun.
Yeah. I think I've played water polo maybe only a few times. It's not that big in here, but I have an idea of the thing, but I wouldn't say that I know even the rules.
Yeah.
Can you get that like rough with the other players?
Yeah, because like the thing is like, for example, if I have the ball, you can put me down on the water if I don't release it, so it's not a fault.
All right.
So things get tough.
Drown, bitch.
Yeah, and things are gonna get tough on the water, like kicks and shit, So you kind of have to know how to play it.
Yeah.
And be smart about it.
Yeah, and of course, like jumping up and down in the water is rough and all these things. But
for you guys that are listening and don't know, you can't touch the bottom of the pool.
Okay, yeah, so you can just
like bounce. You won't even, like, if you play in a decent team or a decent championship, like the pools are not are deep enough that you can't touch them. Like the pool where you used to train and play was like 4 meters deep. So there's no way you touch the ground. So
yeah. Or if you do, like, it's like, what the fuck you're even doing that deep?
Yeah, something is wrong if you're down there,
Usually, yeah. So, all right. So from water polo and everything, you switched and started to study kinetics. How would you, by the way, define kinetics, human kinetics?
Like, I think you can, in a way, define human kinetics as like how you relate motion, physics, and anatomy and physiology, basically.
Yeah.
All those like 3 or 4 concepts gather together and how they influence each other. It's basically movement assessment, what kinetics means. So it's basically about that.
Yeah, and it sounds like kind of like how would you define or separate that from biomechanics? Is it, well, it's more or less the same.
It's similar. I would say it's very similar.
Yeah, because that's how I feel like it is very similar. But like maybe
biomechanic, you're maybe seeing it more like kind of in a lab of biomechanics that you are checking the angles and you are checking the speed, and the acceleration, maybe more that way when you think about biomechanics, and you're trying to understand from where the forces are coming, where are they being applying, but I think for most of people, maybe when you think about biomechanics, you think more about, like optimizing performance, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. All right.
Which can be applied for like just regular tasks of the daily life, that you need to know what happens. But I think most of people maybe have a bit that idea,
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, I would. Of course, I don't know what's the definition of biomechanics, but most what I think about is like breathing mechanics, foot mechanics, like pelvis and fucking rib cage, all these things. But what would you say about the education in there? Like what did you learn, or what was the things that you, especially nowadays, you feel like you still use in your job? Like what was the things that you learned from the school there?
Like on the school, like even on the bachelor and later on the masters, is about learning the foundations. Like learn very well the major principles through your body and human body works. And training and programming and methodology and that kind of stuff. Because if you learn that well, then you can understand other stuff, other new stuff, but you need to know the foundations. And I think maybe it's one of the things that most of people struggle the most. Is learn very well the foundations. Because you can't, let's say, even when you go through and probably this is true to other things besides sports, right?
Yeah.
But you can't expect to go through a bachelor, even like a master or whatever, and you think that, okay, now I know everything and I don't need to study any longer. That's not how it works, right?
Yeah. The real learning actually comes after the school and everything. So,
and there's stuff that you learn at the time at university, like that maybe you learn. I wouldn't even say learn. You maybe memorized. To pass on the freaking test. And you think, oh, I'm not gonna ever use this, and some years later on, you realize, okay, now that's why that was important, and then you actually have to study it again.
Yes. Yeah. That is so true. Because and I agree. Learning good foundations is like really important in everything, and one thing that I can relate that to right away is definitely like martial arts and learning jiu-jitsu and stuff. Like good foundations is everything. You need to learn the basics and these steps. And then later on, you definitely can kind of like, oh, so these were the reasons why this works, and this is the reason why all these small details that I kind of passed by maybe later and just wasn't okay, it's like fucking foot here, but you kind of know, but you don't really know, and then you come to it later and just everything kind of stays in its place. Then you can move around after everywhere from the foundations, but you need that too, kind of.
And then if you don't have a good understanding of the foundation in different areas, of course, it's going to be very hard for you to be critical about new information.
Yeah, that is true also. How can it, if it's very, you don't know anything that's kind of really grounding the whole thing, then you just can take new information that just try it, and you don't know any idea why it works or why it doesn't work, and you just have to guess most
it's
of the time.
It's going to be just isolated info, so it's not
you're
believing that some dude told you that, or you saw someone that has an audience or something like that, right?
Yeah, and then it's like guesswork. You're not understanding the whole thing behind it. Yeah, that is very true. And actually, I've heard that it's the same in physics. You need the good foundations, basic stuff. Yeah. All right. That's definitely because one thing that I was thinking that there is, or I wanted to maybe ask, what's your opinion on that? And well, that kind of also maybe answered it a little bit, but what do you think? Because there are personal trainers and coaches, and anything can kind of fit under that name. Like I would say, it can be that that's just someone who has taken like a weekend course basically, or someone who has actually, like, you have the masters in sports science and everything. So it's the name itself, personal trainer or coach, can be a really like a, it doesn't or it can involve so much, like the quality of the personal trainer and how much they actually know about stuff can be like a hell of a difference. So what is the one thing that most coaches and personal trainers do wrong in your mind? Like, what is the one big thing that you see the most, maybe with not so experienced and talented coaches?
Yeah, I would say is understanding the foundations.
Yeah,
What is under,
because
the things you are applying.
mm-hmm.
That is not just something fancy, or you just saw someone doing a new exercise, and that you have intention on what you do.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a reason to do things in a or B, C way, and you need to have a reason to make them different or to have that choice.
Yeah.
And when you talk many times with younger coaches, there's no reason. Oh yeah, I could have done this or that, but well, that looked better, for some reason.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because you were talking about like basically different names, right? Coach, performance coach, personal trainer, and some others that I don't even remember now, right?
Yeah.
And you have now, you probably know that, but you have the countries that are dealing legally with that in different ways.
Yeah.
If you think about, for example, Canada, Australia, you have called cheers exercise physiologists, for example. The main difference is that they can work at a certain degree with clinical populations, and you basically have to go through a course, and there's a certification that allows you to do that. In Portugal, for example, you by law have to be able to get access to it's not a certification, but how to say it in English. You are basically legally authorized or certified by a public sport institution, that says, okay, you can work with this population, or you are legally allowed to, So things are changing a little bit. But that's funny because like my perception of that kind of changed through the years. I remember when I finished like university and masters, like I used to define myself as an exercise physiologist, because in a way, someone that studied sports and works more with the clinical population and maybe has more formal education on it. As the other way, personal trainer can be, as you said, someone that just, take a weekend course and is training people.
Yeah.
But with the time that kind of changed for me, I started not to care about it, because at the end, like, it doesn't really, even though I did that route, but I don't think that matters that much if you take your time to learn the foundations and know more about it.
Yeah.
Because at the end, I met coaches that didn't get that formal education, and they had more knowledge than other people that went through that route.
Yeah.
So I think like if your profession is something that doesn't need in a way a legal or a specific technical knowledge. Let's say if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, you need to study law and you need to study medicine, because that's how it works, right?
Yeah. You don't want to be a doctor that kills your patients.
Yeah. So it's a bit different, right? But if you want to work in marketing, or you want to work maybe with finance, in a way or another, you can learn those things.
Yeah, that is true.
Right. So
yeah, that is true. That and maybe I'm even almost a good example of that I don't have, like, or I have the one certification that we went through the ready state thing. But before that, I didn't have like any like a formal education background on training or coaching. Of course, I had some experience coaching martial arts, and all my life being like in sports and everything, so I had that kind of experience. And because I've been interested in kind of studying at least some things like nutrition and fucking recovery, so I did maybe have some sort of knowledge that way, but then learned basically everything at the job. Of course, we have the education there also, but like I didn't go through a formal education route. But I would say that, especially looking at a lot of personal trainers around, like, not to shit on Elixir and all these other places, but like just a regular personal trainer, let's say, I can see that the level is so large, like in the depth of understanding and knowledge of anything. So it's kind of weird to see. And I'm thinking, of course, like you said, you don't need a formal education, maybe, if you can take the time to learn the other things. But what would you say, if you can be more specific, what foundations are the biggest factors in your sense? Like, what are the, if you can give some examples, what are the things regarding foundations that you should really know?
Yeah, there's some basics, like you need to have an understanding how your body works. Like, so, basic, I wouldn't say basic. Well, some people don't even have the basic, right? But
yeah,
you need to know enough about anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can correlate how the anatomy works with the physics.
Mm-hmm.
And probably that's the definition of biomechanic.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Because you know what provokes what, and then what forces are applying on that body with some other axes and other force vectors, right?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest difference. Like, for example, when you think about what exercise I'm going to do, because you know what force are applying in some tissue, and then you can understand if that body is ready for those demands or not.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things. Like, you can't just look at an exercise if you don't understand what forces are being applied.
Yeah.
That's one. And without any specific order, the second would be what systems are involved on your body. For example, when you train, if you are training more in an energetic system, or or is more about nervous system adaptations, you have to have a basic understanding what is the system that has the most demand on that task. So then you can prescribe exercise accordingly.
What could be a good example of that sort of exercise?
Well, you need to, for the most simple stuff, like if you are prescribing, let's say, a circuit training, that's what you're going to see the most people doing when it's like sort of like a fat loss goal, right? But you have to understand, if with that kind of circuit, for example, if you want to provoke more adaptations on the strength level or on the conditioning level, or what you're trying to do. Because it's like in other sciences, like if you try to do everything, probably you're not doing nothing or not being specific enough.
Yeah.
I think it's enough that we don't think anymore as exercise as a burning calories like tool, because it's quite poor doing that.
Yeah, like cardio stuff is kind of way better to burning, or especially just walking in general. If those burn fuck ton of calories, if you just
I think when you think about training, you have to, even though not everybody is an athlete, but the approach must be that you are an athlete. Not, of course, not that on that level of commitment. But when I say that you must see it as an athlete, is in the way that you must progress. Of course, you're not progressing to go to Olympics or even to the nationals, right? But you must progress that way.
You have to think about it that it's a movement that you should get better at, like athletically and everything. You should be able to perform better and use the correct things, like you said. Well, of course, depending on what you want to do, but perform in some way better, let's say, to try to be more broad.
If you want to improve your conditioning, it must be because you want your heart to be healthy and cope with more effort, right? And being more efficient. and not necessarily because you burn more calories if you go for a run instead if you're lifting.
Yeah.
So it's like those kind of basic stuff.
Yeah. Anything else, or like that's too?
Yeah, I would think. Yeah, we talked about basically understanding how the force apply the force on the body, right?
Yeah.
Then a basic understanding of
what systems
systems your body is working and where are you applying those demands, and if you think from that perspective, and then what kind of training you are applying,
Yeah.
So you have to understand a little bit of biology and what structures are taking that demand, and that if you are not considering that you are coaching a person, right?
Yeah.
Because other things come.
Well, yeah, definitely. There's like all the other factors outside the training, that are the aspects that always affect the whole
Of
system.
course, you have psychology, you have communication, you have bonding, empathy, all of that stuff. But if you are a bit more technical on that side, I think would be mainly those things.
All right. Yeah, definitely. And just from even client perspective, not every client will always ask you like, why are we doing this and what does it do? And I think you should be always ready to give an answer to that. Or if you don't have like you said, if you don't know why you're doing something, then just why are you doing it? Why are you so confident that this is the exact or right thing to do? So it's
definitely you should know why you are doing that. And you should be able to explain it in a very simple way. I'm not sure if it was Einstein that said that you should be able to explain it to a 5-year-old, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
If you're not, well, maybe you don't know that much as you think about the subject.
Yes, yeah. And I've heard someone else say, or also from Einstein, that in a way he was marketing genius, that there were other people who kind of were also really smart like him, but they couldn't explain it so that general population would understand. Some other like really good physicist would understand it, but like no other people. That's the talent, like you said. You need to explain it, or if you can explain it so simply that like a 5-year-old or someone who doesn't actually have any understanding of previous knowledge of this subject, then you actually kind of know what you're talking about, or you are really good at understanding the subject behind it or the whole thing.
Because even if I think like if I'm learning something else that I didn't study that much about, or I don't know that much about it, like I buy in much better if I understand enough why we are doing something. But if you give me too much info, it's just going to be on the cloud that I'm not going to reach ever, because
yeah, that is true also. Information overload, and that is a real thing in a lot of things. But you started working with clients. What age? Like if you said 14, 13 years, so you were like...
Well, I'm 34 now.
Yeah,
I started
20?
to coach with 18, so maybe even a couple more years on top of that.
Okay, so yeah.
And was quite fun at the beginning, because on the first year in college, like my swimming coach at the time knew that I was about to go studying sport. So he asked me, "Hey Fred, do you want to start coaching a little bit? Just something on the weekends, Saturday morning, you get some cash, like just and you learn and you get comfortable with people." So was about that, So my first job actually was a swimming coach.
All right. Yeah. How was it?
Yeah, it was fun. Was dealing a lot of different people, from kids, adults. Then when I started to develop a little bit more, I started to coach a bit more competitive people on that sense. And then it was a swimming pool, but was at the same time as a very small kind of almost health club in a way.
Okay.
The main thing was the pool, but we had some like a small gym, very small gym, but we were prescribing some exercise and, giving some support to people. So as I was studying, I started to give more support on that kind of parts and teaching some group classes and kind of that stuff. So it was fun because you start to get more comfortable dealing with a group of people.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. Yeah, and that definitely is important. I would say important in life in general, and especially if you're working in any kind of service industry. Like, yeah, you need to be comfortable with working people and with crowds, and even especially in our job, let's say, you need to be confident in what you're doing, or like, and preferably that you also know what you're doing. So that's like, why would people maybe stay with you if you're not like fucking, you're so turned in and like look like you're scared of the clients, and like, okay, sure, like, I'll find another trainer if you're that kind of, you can't talk or be with people. So yeah, it's definitely a easy thing or a good thing to do, I would say. So you started coaching a lot and swimming and everything. When did you make the move to, or decide to move more like towards just personal training? What was the
It's like
thing that drove you
wasn't
there?
basically a natural progression. Before, you were asking me what would be important for a new coach.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that has been changing nowadays. At least I see that not only in Finland, Portugal, probably some other places as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is that before you would graduate, let's say, if you did that formal education or even like a shorter education,
Mm-hmm.
and you would work as a kind of gym instructor.
Yeah.
You know, you would be on the gym floor just helping people out, doing their program training, support them, with their technique, go around, and basically you would be managing almost like the gym floor, right? On the hours that you would be working there.
Okay.
So you get a lot of exposure to deal with people, to deal with different problems, and be with a group.
Yeah, yeah.
And that gives you some other skills that you need when you are working as a one-on-one coach or personal trainer.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when you start to get a little bit good on that, then okay, maybe now I'm going to coach one-on-one and I'm going to start to get my own clients and do that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays people just like, you stop your education or you start working in exercise and you go right away and you coach one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bit tougher because there's a lot of stuff that you didn't experience before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Coaching one-on-one is going to be more demanding from the value that you have to offer to that person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. Yeah, that is definitely true. So, yeah, because one-on-one, yeah, there's only like from personal training or individual coaching, let's say, I think, yeah, the value expected is way higher than from a group class, because group, of course, it's kind of almost expected, maybe without even saying that, yeah, you can't give the same value for everyone in the group, especially if the group is very, very large. Like, let's say, if I go coach a class of, I think, what would be the biggest class that I've taught? Maybe around 40 people or something like that. So I can't, of course, give as much time to each 40 people, or that would be the whole workout that I'm just fucking running around.
But I think there's a big difference. Like if you think from coaching a group class and coaching one-on-one, I think, of course, like you don't give it the same attention. It's different being 1 hour with one person and being like delivering a class for like 30, 40, 50 people, right?
Yeah.
But the main difference, like on the group class, of course, you're going to see people on the health club, people is going to come talk with you and everything. Mm-hmm. But you are coaching them during that hour.
Yeah.
When you are with one person or one-on-one, of course, you're going to coach them during that hour, but it's more about that. It's how you set the plan, how you talk with the person, how you set expectations, how you set targets. Mm-hmm. You don't do that on a group class, right? The person shows up on the group class and then it's done, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big difference.
Yeah, that is totally. And actually, like, that made me think that, the accountability and follow-up is way different in one-on-one coaching. Like, you are more in contact with them. But now that actually made me think that maybe I have been trying to do that a little bit even with the group classes. I'm trying to set some expectations on like what I would want them to see and try in the practice, or like in other practices even that they go to. And trying to kind of build up, or I build this or did this step. We went through basically a whole passing system, if you would say. Then these are the things that are included in it. To become a really good passer, you need to be good in these 4 or basically 5 situations at least, and then just build on top of it, and then just always told them that we're going to move to this next time, and this is like we're building this step by step going forward. So, and it seemed to actually really work, and people liked it. So I think you can maybe run even a group class a little bit like that, but it's still different. It's still totally different. You're just by a lot of things, but just by how much attention you're basically giving one person, then definitely, because
and will depend a lot, like if you're teaching, let's say, a group class, in which facility are you giving that session? If you are in a big commercial gym, like the faces are gonna rotate so much, that's gonna be very hard to do something like that. But if you are coaching like jiu-jitsu, that you have that group that every Tuesday and every Thursday is there, then you can do that kind of work, right? So it's gonna depend a lot.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, of course, even there the faces rotate a little bit, but it's not the same that like you said, a commercial gym, that's probably like people come and go way more, and just there are always maybe the certain people who are kind of really dedicated and go there every time, but it's with everything basically. But one-on-one coaching and what would be, like you said, the communication and everything, what would be maybe something that you have learned now that you wouldn't maybe expect that would be such a big factor in the whole thing, or like how can you actually make people make changes in their lives?
I would say on the first years as a coach, and I probably did that myself as well. You are so focused on being very good technically, as we were talking before, like understand very well how biomechanics works, what muscles are activated, what are the last trends on training, the special techniques, and all of that stuff. And then you forget that, that's important, but if you don't know how to communicate with your clients, how to understand their expectations, to know to read the other person, I think is one of the biggest things. You need to know how to read the room.
That is true, because that's definitely like one thing, and I can familiarize with that. Like I first especially didn't, because I didn't have that much background of coaching, I was like really focused on that I need to kind of know these exercises and what they do and why, and kind of like make them be as right as possible, and how can I fix the movement to look better, and how can I cue it to make it better and everything. But I would also say that what I've especially noticed lately is like communication. How can you communicate through your client? What would you want from them? What are you expecting? How to manage, like you said, their expectations of stuff, and just kind of make them even think a lot of stuff, because that's a lot of times they don't think about, like, for example, their diet, their health in that way. They're focused on their job, their family, their kids, and all these things. Just that's what's there on their mind, and a lot of people just get used to something, and that's they have their habits and patterns, and it's really hard, or can be really hard, to change those if they're not that recipient maybe to what you're even saying, because those are like at first it might amaze me a little bit, and then even amazes some other people, like, why are you paying for a personal trainer if you're just gonna ignore a lot of things that they say, and all these things that was almost first like I didn't, I couldn't understand it so well, but
in that sense, that's funny, because like it's not always easy to put ourselves in other person's shoes.
Yeah, that's true also.
But if probably we are honest with ourselves, and I've done that myself, if you think about some projects or things that you bought a course about something, probably you did that and you pay about it and you didn't do it. I did that in other stuff. You know?
Yeah. That can happen.
And if you think how hard it was, like not necessarily hard to understand, but hard to commit when you don't have that much knowledge about something and you start to doing it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that easy to stick with it.
That is true.
And for us, of course, it's like sometimes it's hard to understand how somebody doesn't stick with their diet, or they don't understand the basic principles of training when you're explaining, even in a very simple way. But maybe if someone is explaining you something from, let's say, cybersecurity or some biochemistry or, you know, probably you're not going to understand some other stuff as well.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that is definitely true, because I have, even just talking with my girlfriends a lot of times and starts to talk about physics, I'm like, I understood some of that, but not all of it. Like, not total, no. And like you said, other topics. And that's just like, people are knowledgeable in different things. And that's a richness in itself, actually. But yeah, we have all our expertise is like whatever you spend time on, you're learning more about that, but you're in a way choosing that and then excluding everything else. So it makes sense that you just know about these certain things and then you don't know about the other things. So yeah, that is true, but I definitely think that how you communicate to them makes a difference, because you can build the, like, I like the idea, I can't remember who said it first time I heard it, but you can have the fucking fanciest and the most perfect plan ever, how to train, how to do this, how to do that, but if you can't get them to execute any of it, it's worthless, basically.
Yeah, if it doesn't happen, doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So that's the thing. How can you make sure that everything happens? And I think that is mostly through communication.
Yeah, and you need to build something that you know that the other person is able to understand and is able to execute.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it doesn't have any impact. You know, so.
Yeah. It's like, I think the magic sometimes in it is trying to find the easiest, lowest step forward that they can commit to. Like, of course, it can be a bigger step, but yeah, the key word is what they feel comfortable committing to. Because, yeah, like you said, even though something for us might feel like it's just a teeny tiny change, like how could you not do that? But for someone, that is a really big change already, and then they get fucking uncomfortable if you try to demand more of them, and then just trying to find the right balance that it's not so little that it doesn't have any effect or it doesn't do anything, and maybe is even demotivating because like it's such a fucking minor thing.
And you can't assume things.
Yeah, that is true.
You have to ask. You know?
Yes.
You have to have a real conversation about it.
Yes, that is true.
We tend to assume a lot of things that are not true. And then you misunderstand why some things happen if you assume that right away.
Yes, that is true. And like it's I've noticed that, and I'm trying to be or better at it all the time. I think I've kind of been pretty good at it or decent at it, but I'm getting better at it, because if someone says like anything, like even for example, a good example from clients, if they said like, I didn't sleep so well, it can be totally different answer from depending on who actually answered that. Someone says like, well, it was just 7 hours, or it was just maybe I woke up once and went to the bathroom. I was awake for a while, but then I got back to sleep. Or it can be like one guy like, maybe 2 hours. I'm like, okay. So you can't assume anything. And then just a lot of times when you're talking with a lot of people about anything, you need to be kind of sure what are they saying actually when they say something. Like, what do you mean by that? Describe that to me. What does that mean to you? Or all these things. It's very, very important. And actually, I think that also helps, because then they feel more heard. And then I think they're even more recipient for the other information, because you made them heard, and then you understand that, okay, I understand, but that. But if you just assume something, and then just throw something against it, and then the other person's like, oh, what the fuck, I didn't even mean that, and just like blah, 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 and it's a whole.
Yeah, that's funny you were talking about this, because that was one of the things that I had to maybe adapt a bit more when I moved to Finland.
Mm-hmm.
Because the communication is different, right?
Yes.
One of the things I noticed the most with, let's say, customer service is that people want to be very polite.
Yeah.
So you have to dig in a little bit more to understand if something is wrong or if someone is not actually that happy as you think.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. And I even remember you giving an example of your client that didn't basically say anything for half a year or something, and then just suddenly started to talk about things. And
it's super nice guy, and a very smart guy with very interesting conversations. But took a little bit to break the ice, So.
Yeah. I think the Finnish are especially kind of different kind of people with this kind of things, like how maybe they open up and how much they say. It's like, how was your day? Good.
But that's so funny, because like you see that with like in some environments, but then like I have 2 dogs, so you go out with the dog, you see other pet owners, and most of people is actually very easy to start a conversation. They even take the initiative to start a conversation.
Yeah.
So because I have a lot of like even family members or friends from Portugal, and everybody says to me, oh yeah, but like Finns or Nordic people are very cold, right? Like I was like, well, actually it's not my experience.
Yeah.
Of course, if you compare maybe with Portuguese people and other Latin, like southern countries in Europe, you get closer faster.
Yeah.
I think here it takes it takes longer. Maybe to be part of the circle, or even if you ever make part of the circle.
Yeah.
But on daily basis, it's actually not that hard, and people are actually open to have a conversation.
Yeah, I would say that it's
maybe
true.
It's more like about casual stuff. Maybe to get into serious stuff, it takes longer.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is true. Like it's kind of when there's some, like the dog thing, I definitely agree that I have seen that also. The dog people just always like, oh, what's his name and all this.
Yeah,
they just go and have the conversation right away. And it's kind of weird, but in some senses I think also it's a little bit like we like our own space, and just I think also like how far away and how close or how far people even are when they're talking and everything. That's kind of different in especially Latin and Finnish countries. I think a lot of things are kind of just very distant, at least like stay at least a one like arm length away or even more, and just they don't maybe talk. I feel like I nowadays talk more with my hands, or at least depending on the situation, I just fucking do this all the time, or not as much. But a lot of Finnish, they're just their arms are maybe tied to their sides, and they're just like, yeah, yes, good, nice, fine. But not everybody, but that's kind of like the stereotype of a Finnish person.
Yeah, but that's funny that you're talking about that, because of course my girlfriend is Finnish, and we actually met in Lisbon. And even though she's a very like kind of bubbly and social person, but I remember once, when you were like having like a very kind of almost close moment or romantic moment even, and you're looking in your eyes and you are kind of close. And it was the first time that someone told me, well, look, you are too close to me, like when your noses are too close and you look into the eye.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like, back off.
Yeah, too much, too much.
Yeah, even though you're like, there's definitely the, like, you are allowed to, or like it's not a stranger or anything, it's like partner and funny, everything, but still like different. I need my space. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've been here in Finland for, is it for around a little bit under 4 years, 3 years,
Yeah,
3 years.
I think it's gonna be
3
like
years.
3 years, like in August, so almost there. Yeah,
Because you basically moved when you started there
yeah,
in
and we
performance.
started at the same time. So
Yeah,
yeah.
we did. Basically, everyone from our group that we started, like everyone has stayed, and I think actually everyone has kind of, well, like you had already a lot of experience and everything, but kind of moved forward and got better, way better, and still are at the company because there's been people coming and going. But
Yeah, I think we were kind of like a solid group in a way.
yeah, it was you, me, Carolina, Mikael, and Tony.
And Tony, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I hardly, or I, of course I know I've heard some other people say, but I rarely ask that much like feedback from stuff. But yeah, like because you saw my starting point and the point that I'm at now. So, do you think there's any development?
Yeah, I would say definitely.
Yeah.
But I think you put a lot of work and effort, and to actually want to be better and like and know that you at the beginning you were in a place that you had to get better. Right?
Yeah.
You were real about that. You knew it.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
you weren't faking nothing. So I think that makes a big difference. You need to be aware where you are, right?
Yeah.
And then you had the right attitude and you were humble enough to come to more experienced people and say, look, I don't know how this goes. Can you help me out?
Yeah.
So that's how it starts, I think.
Yeah, it is, and I think that's a good thing. Like even I'm always been kind of really open person to everything, and that's I want to learn constantly new things and everything. So that's already in me in that sense. But then I definitely was. I was really humble, of course, because I felt like I was humbled. Like, of course, like a lot. I remember in the beginning thinking about like, fuck, these people are so much better than me than this. Like, in a way, I felt like I don't even belong here because everyone else is just way better. And the things that we were trying to educate and learn and teach, and just like, okay, yeah, well, I'm learning, I'm trying to do, and I go to fucking every mentoring and everything that there is, and just I think that was definitely a thing, and I tried to also put in a lot of work to it, but it's good to see that there's been something at least that I feel like it's pretty different. My life is totally different from 3 years ago, or like in a lot of ways, and like skills wise and just everything, experience, all these things. It's I'm in a fucking good place because I was actually kind of fucked over by a few other companies just before that, and it was like
enough of that, right?
Enough of that, and thinking just what the fuck am I even, or where is my life going if I'm getting screwed over by some companies, and I need to just learn a lot, let's say. So it was a experience. And
it means that you are moving soon and you're gonna even pursue the same career, so let's say something about it.
It does, and I feel confident enough at least that I can do it, because if it would be the same thing like a few years ago, I don't think it's like fuck, like do I know enough to be confident to make it work? So I wouldn't say so, but now I actually do, and it's feels weird in a way, because it's such a big change in like 3 years, and even in other stuff at the same time also, like the jiu-jitsu and everything, because I feel like my game has gotten so much better in like these few last years, and just everything is just moving in the right direction. So it's good. It's nice.
But one thing I regret on these maybe last years that we met is that when I injured my knee, then my finger, that I didn't get to learn more from you from the jiu-jitsu.
Well, you have still time, a little bit of time. But it's I think that's a lot of people have come to the classes, and then they have kind of went away, and Anton has really stayed there a lot, and that's respect, and he has got also a lot better, like a lot better. But yeah, it's yeah, that's I notice, even though I really like what I'm doing and I enjoy it and it's cool, and I like working with people, but I still can see that my bigger passion is that. So that's very nice that I can do that. And I even remember you saying something along the lines of you liked the way I taught it, and I've heard the same from other people. But what do you think? Because you don't have that much of a background in martial arts. What do you think it's like? Why does it feel so? Maybe I'm not sure, different, but like why would you, how did you regard as like good? Because like even though you don't know or haven't that much maybe experience from other martial arts coaches, or
I think it's like it starts to, like, let's say if you are teaching me like, let's call it a new maneuver. I don't know if it's the best term to explain it, but you explain very well why I'm gonna do it. You know, why I'm doing, when I'm putting my arm under or over, what I'm trying to avoid. You know, so that gives you a little bit of strategy to understand how you play with the other person. And then that you split it in enough steps, but not too many, that you can memorize, like maybe like 3 or 4 steps, right, until you get into the position. So I think that's the main thing. And of course, like if you're teaching someone that doesn't have that much experience on that specific like martial art, for example, it has to be simple enough that you feel that you are progressing, and that you can actually use it a little bit later on the session when you're going to spar with someone else, that you actually can take something from it, right? Of course you want to play the game a little bit, you want to have some fun, right?
Of course.
So that's part of the game.
You know, definitely the sparring is the fun part usually. But of course you need to do the other things also, maybe to kind of just learn some moves and techniques and everything. But
that's funny to see. I remember when me and Tony were sparring a little bit. Like Tony's a big guy too, like, and there's some strength. Then I remember we were just like, you know, it was more a battle than actually a jiu-jitsu thing, you know, because we were just using all our power, you know, getting gas like in a couple seconds, because we weren't using technique, right? So, I remember that. But you have that thing that you like to fight, you know. So I know. It's like, but you gotta learn with that. But.
Yeah, definitely, and that's like what usually happens in the beginning, because just like lack of knowledge, like you don't know better.
You don't have technique for, you know. You don't have enough technique.
But you have the basic experience or understanding of, like, I don't want to be like maybe pinned to the floor, and I don't want to be
you know a little bit how to move and how to use the levers in the body, right? You can push, pull, and work with that. But when you put someone on the floor, then okay, now what are you gonna do to submit this guy or make him tap, right? That's the thing.
That's definitely a thing. And then just but I think with you guys especially, because everybody in our gym is basically fucking strong and athletic and everything, and it's almost hard not to use that too much in the beginning, because of course that's a huge advantage to you actually if you know how to use it properly. So it's like fucking, like, let's say Mathis, when he came to the sessions, like, ooh, that guy is explosive and everything, and he can maneuver really fast and strong and all these things. So if he could use all of that athleticism and strength and conditioning that he has, that would be a scary man. But of course you need to learn how to be efficient. That is the most thing, like how to be efficient, because then the more efficient you are, or especially if you can make the other person be less efficient with his energy and with his power, then you're gonna eventually drain the other person basically. And even though they would be way stronger than you, then they're gonna fucking melt basically.
I remember like a funny situation where we're rolling together, me and you, and like you were going like kind of a fucking Spider-Man, you know, around. And I was feeling, what the fuck, how I'm gonna get away? And then I remember, like, I think you were on top of me or something, and like on my back, and my instinct was like just lift myself, you know, because of course you were lighter than me, so it was easy.
Yeah.
And then on my mind, I lifted you, and I was gonna throw you on the floor, and the shit would be done, you know, you'd be gone. But then suddenly, as soon as I did it, you just choked me.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, for fuck's sake, how did this happen?
Yeah.
You know, like so.
Yeah. It is like, and that's also like the great part, and that's of course that I have experience, let's say, from being humbled like that, like someone just fucking choking you out, or just like would break your arm or something like that. You're like, what the okay, yeah, fuck. Okay, let's try again. Let's try again. But just, yeah, it's totally different, or it's almost like a science of, again, how to work the human body and where is it strong and where is it not. And I think it has helped me with some stuff, maybe even regarding the coaching, like the personal training, just understanding at least a little bit about some angles and things that what are the things that I might want to do and why, because I can use my strength against some, or make something like, let's say one example, pushing your limbs to an extreme flexion, or let's say extension, of course, especially extension, then you're breaking usually shit or just whatever. But usually, like, if I can push your arm all the way to your shoulder, it's not going to be as strong to push against, even if you have a little bit more space, and actually use that space to push off, using the same kind of principles with your legs. And just because legs are usually strong, even though you would be a smaller person, your legs are carrying you all the time, and you can actually use that to your advantage. And then just if I can push your heels basically all the way to your butt, then it's like your legs are nearly not as strong, and you can't do stuff as much. And yeah, but it doesn't maybe always apply to basic coaching and gym training, but there are maybe some stuff that I have kind of picked up and used even on those things also. But yeah, it's a thing. And one thing that I maybe, well, I have talked with this even with few people, but one thing that I might be regretting a little bit, but again, I don't feel like in the end that I'm not that much regretting, because thinking back, like if I would have if I would go back to my life in these situations, I would probably do the same choices anyway. But I feel like I would have maybe wanted to spend more time going like out with people and stuff and all these things. But I'm just always like, yeah, I'm fucking tired. I'm working. I'm doing this. It's like it's taxing, and it's sometimes hard to do everything that you would want to do. But maybe that's one thing that I could have done a little bit more, at least these last 3 years. But it's a journey. I'm not complaining. I think I'm very, very happy at the thing or the situation that I'm in my life. So can't complain actually. So, but going back to coaching a little bit also, yeah, what would be, I think we have also almost kind of answered to some of those things, but what would be some tips to your younger self about, like, if you would be better at some things when you begin it or started some, like, started your coaching and you're like progressing later, what would be things that you would have done differently?
I would say, like, because I was working with so many different people in different contexts. And in a way, reading people for me was something that I kind of had that skill. But what I would have done earlier would be to formally learn more about communication. You know, because I remember, like, I was studying a lot, going abroad to attend different conferences and doing different courses, but was much more on the technical aspect of the thing, you know, learning about rehab when you have a certain injury, or learning about some technique, for example, the neurology stuff.
Yeah.
But I never pursue to know more about actually how to communicate efficiently. You know, even though in college you study some psychology and some stuff like that, but it's much more in a academic way. That doesn't translate that much practically after when you actually dealing with people. So that's probably one of the things.
I definitely think that again, efficient communication is key to basically everything. I think it's been said that if you can communicate what you want and why very clearly, then that is also in itself like a big weapon, let's say, or a big advantage for you. And especially if you can understand also other people really well, and then understand their problems and give them good solutions to those also, because you understand actually what they want and why.
And of course, most of things you learn by doing it, right?
And
you always have to reflect about those things. But I feel that, and this happens in a lot of knowledge we learn through life. Many things maybe we are already doing them a little bit unconsciously, even though at the same time with some intention. But maybe you don't realize like that you are using in a way a system, or maybe that system is not as organized, let's say like that. You know, so many times it's important to have the information in front of you organized, so you are aware how you should proceed, so then you can reanalyze and maybe improve your system.
That is true. I can see that, especially like in jiu-jitsu. Sometimes just because of all the experiences, you learn some reactions that you do basically unconsciously, but you're not as conscious of why are you doing this, and could there be another better option to it. And once you become like really conscious of what do you want and why do you want to go this step next, this, then it's like starts to be really efficient and almost, well, not easy, but easier to control the whole thing, actually, the chaos of fucking billion possibilities that could be happening. You can kind of, even if you're really good at it, you can narrow the down of possibilities, what can happen in this situation, and then you can predict it even easier. But you're doing something, and I can also reflect on that by because I have maybe even myself studied like communication at least a little bit through different things, and trying to go through some courses kind of like talking about especially sales and stuff. That is a very it's a different kind of communication than regular talking, but it's a very kind of clear thing to communicate to try to get to a certain goal, let's say. And that's, of course, what we're in a way trying to do. In a nice way, we're trying to maybe manipulate you to being a healthier and better person. It sounds bad to use the word manipulate, but in a way you are sometimes doing that, like planting maybe some ideas in the other person's head, like not in a bad way, but like, let's say, well, what do you think about, or like, how would this and this kind of, let's say, nutrition, how could it affect you in your life, and why do you think that could be important for you, or something like that. Just an example of
but in a way you have to tell a story, and you have to build a journey in anything you communicate, right? And we were talking about maybe, I don't know if I can call it a mistake, but maybe things that young coaches can improve is, and this happens in other areas of work, right? That are not related with coaching, but anytime you are providing a service, you are doing a sale, right? Because there's an exchange, right? You pay me, I deliver a service to you. And I think a lot of coaches are a bit adverse to the word sales. People get uncomfortable with it. But in reality, when you are selling a service, if you have a good product, you are delivering value. In exchange, of course, of some payment, because you are doing work, and it's not free. So it's not a bad thing selling if you're offering a good product.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And many times, I don't know, maybe we have a lot of in a way a bad idea of that, because everybody thinks maybe about the sale like the sleazy salesman that sells door by door. That maybe is not a bad thing if he offers you a good product, you can take value from it, right?
Yeah.
But we have a little bit that kind of idea, you know. The shady guy that just wants to sell you some bullshit, you know.
Yeah.
And I think we have to turn that around a little bit.
Yeah, that is true. And I have also gotten better even at that, because because I think what most people experience from like sales is like basic consumer some products, and especially like call center things, like they fucking call you in the worst times of day, and you're like, yeah, no, I'm not fucking interested in your shitty product, and they try to push it to you, but no, well, wait, it's so like good, and you have even like, they don't take no for an answer, and just like they're just trying to fucking push it down your throat, like you need this fucking cup holder or whatever, like no, I fucking don't.
Maybe you do sometimes though.
Maybe I do, but like that's like, or they're trying like in some stores, just like for example, I have heard people say that they're kind of almost testing, let's say someone who works at a clothing company or clothing store, and if they push something really fucking ugly on, yeah, that looks good on you, like you know it and I don't know it fucking doesn't, but it has a big price tag, so you're like, yeah, that looks fucking good. So that's maybe a little bit the experience of some people of like, what is a salesman. But like you said, if you actually have a fucking good product that can provide value to people, why would it be a bad thing to actually provide that, and just tell them that, hey, you're gonna benefit from that, you're gonna achieve all these things.
There's a lot of examples. Like a couple weeks ago, I went to like just a clothing shop, and I wore like a suit, you know, and like the sales guy was super useful, you know, was because I just told him, look, I'm looking for this. You just bring the things that would match with my choice. You know, was much easier. Got the size right, the model right. I would have taken like, I don't know. I think I was in the store maybe for 40 minutes checking different stuff. By myself, I would have taken for sure 2 hours. You know, like just looking for the right stuff. So of course, he was trying to upsell me and sell other stuff, but that's the business, right? You are always right to say yes or no. So you know, at the end,
that is true, and you can see that in everything. And I don't think actually, if it's done right, you're not mad about it. You're actually fucking happy that it was like this. Like I have had a lot of those good experiences. It's easier to remember the bad ones for some reason, and I think that there's actual reason for that, because like your life can be so happy, but if it's negative enough, it's gonna fucking end your life basically. But when it happens well, you're actually, like you said, it's nice. Yeah, that actually works with this, and then this I would recommend this to you, and this is actually good that because you're doing this, and like in best case scenarios, like it's gonna probably profit you even in some ways, like when you're doing something really good, like let's say fucking finance, even though it can kind of sound really again sleazy sometimes, like yeah, I think this company, it sounds a little bit like insider trading if you know too much information, but like, yeah, I would know that this would be a good thing to you if you're actually buying it now, or like it's gonna, like even buying a painting, like, yeah, I actually know a little bit about this, and then it's gonna fucking rise through the roof if you do it now. And so, yeah, a good sale is a good, could we actually try to kind of say that good sale gives value somehow.
Yeah, if the product and the service is good, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And you are interested on it, like
yeah. Well, happily, yeah. Hopefully, and what are the other else? I think I have always, like you said, yeah, you can kind of read people. I have had that. I think that I can kind of really easily, well, not maybe really easily, but I can kind of read people a lot, I think. And I can tell from certain things like their posture, their body language, and especially tonality and everything. And these are all things that they talk about in a lot of sales trainings and even like communication things. And I actually think it's true. And it makes a difference even though you might not always think about it. And I have started to think about it way more and try to concentrate on it more. And there's a lot of things that makes a good communicator, a good presentator, all these things. There are some things that are happening all the time, and it does kind of unconsciously also tell you something about the situation and will affect your emotions and your mood and all these things. And especially sometimes when you're selling something, it is based on your emotions or feelings. How do I feel about this thing? And if you can affect that somehow, of course, again, you're selling hopefully something good, but that's just a way to actually put your point in that this is a good product, and then they actually will maybe are more likely to buy it. But what would you say? What are some things that could make people better at communicating?
I would say ask the right questions.
Yeah.
You know, ask enough questions.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, especially if you're dealing with someone that has a hard time open up a little bit,
Yeah.
you have to try to give them some options that they can choose from.
Yeah.
So from there you can start opening the conversation a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise you're gonna have the I don't know, no, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to, in a way, give a conditional option, right?
Yeah.
You can't just reply yes or no. You actually have to give an answer.
Yeah. That is true. No yes or no questions.
Yeah, and then as we discussed before, you have to be able to put yourself on the other person's shoes to see the situation from their perspective and actually be open to listen to the other person.
Yeah.
You know, not just like now you are talking, and if I'm not listening you really, I heard you, you know, but I'm thinking what I'm gonna say next.
Yeah, that is true.
You know, so I have to engage a little bit more openly on the conversation. So
yeah, and that's a skill also, or in that sense that I mean more like listening is a skill. Like you said, you need to actually maybe use a little bit of your effort and resources to actually hear what the other person is saying.
But there's a reason why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? So
yeah. Yes. But it's like with this, for example, I didn't even think about it, or of course I had few things that I knew that I wanted to talk to you about, but I didn't plan it ahead that much that I need to say this, I need to say this. I'm just more relying on my natural reactions to what I'm gonna maybe respond to something and all these things. And that's the actual kind of or the act of listening, because I'm not, and that's it sounds even fake if you're just, like you said, thinking about what I'm gonna just say or next, and then you're just, the other person will get the feeling that you're not actually being heard. So it's not like a productive conversation in that sense. And I would definitely say that also this has maybe helped me a lot. I think it is a skill. Like everything, like the more you do it, the more better you come at it, the more natural you come with these things. And like you said, asking questions and kind of like even we had the mentor session this week about the questions and like all these things, how to kind of maybe communicate with people about some stuff. So I think I have gotten quite good at it, and I do it even unconsciously, that I start to just ask those questions, because like you said, some people, they just don't open up that much, but if you show interest to them, like genuine interest, and try to understand maybe why they are as a person as they are, that already like should open up a lot of possible questions and things that you can discuss about, and to make it kind of more productive, and actually kind of to make it more genuine also, I would say. Yeah. Is there anything else regarding that comes to mind? What would be some of the hallmarks? What would you say, or what would be your best examples of a good communicator? Is there anyone that comes to mind?
Well, there's a couple of people, but yeah, I think it comes to that, like you need to be open to actually listen, to make the other person trust you, ask enough and good questions, listen enough, and then you must be able to tell a story, because people gets more engaged when you have a story, right? So
yeah, that is true, and this power of the story is actually kind of weird in a way, because that is how we have thought traditions in the past, before books and everything, or even books are usually stories, and games are story. Your life is a story in a way.
I think you have a good example, like a little bit in our area, not only coaching but more science, of a good communicator. If you think now, not that everybody knows him, like the Huberman podcast. Even though his last post may be a little polemic in a way, but he was able, either you like it or not, he was able to bring a subject that is somehow complex, like teach other people about neuroscience, that has some weird words for a lot of people, but make it in a way that was very, very organized, compelling, and that makes you want to keep listening, in a way that is scientifical enough still, but it's not that much academic.
Yeah. It's not trying to confuse you too much with the fancy words, and try to keep it as simple as possible. Yeah, that is true. And I like Huberman also. I think he's a good one, for example. Then there are other ones, like even from different kinds of fields. I think one of the best storytellers that I know is definitely like Dave Chappelle, actually a comedian, and he's very like captivating with his performance and everything. You just listen and you let him take him for this ride, and just go through the whole journey and the story that he's trying to tell you through, and then it turns it upside down. It's like, fuck, that was fun. But it's a very, like, even Bible is a story. All these things, like, that's how we have tried to learn, and somehow it does seem to work better than just if you would need to just, for example, I'm not sure how well I'm not even the best in this, but let's say like 10 commandments or something like that. You might know the commandments, but how do you actually adapt that to your life? That can be told through a story, and that way I would say you remember it better than by just putting some lines of like this.
Yeah.
And it's better to tie it to a story, and that we are kind of weirdly interested in stories.
That's funny. You for sure know the book, but if you think about that book, How to Make Friends and Influence People, basically the book is about building stories, right?
Yeah. It is, and or I have not read it, but it is strange that I know also this one course that I went through at work. It was like, what is it, Charisma on Command or something like that. He talked about how you can even when you're introducing yourself, you can kind of make it a story and not just say, Yeah, I'm from Oulu. Yes, I'm 30. Yes. You can try to say like, well, it's like funny that just as an example, it's funny that I got here actually from Oulu, and it was a kind of a random thing in that sense, or not that random. I of course knew that I wanted to go somewhere even then, and it was just good timing in that sense that the person I was with at the moment was moving here, and then I moved there, and just she left, I stayed. All this, like, it's already way more engaging than saying that just I'm from Oulu, now I live here, I'm 30 years old, yes, I'm a coach. So that's boring, and it gets fucking please shut the fuck up. Like, it's not engaging at all. And that reminded me, like you said just earlier, it's funny to see those people, and I can see those kind of people everywhere, those who are married to their thoughts and ideas, and just they're not maybe willing even to learn anything new. What do you think that is? And like, of course I maybe have some ideas also why that is like that, but why is it in us to just and have our fucking egos like, well, I know this shit, and it's definitely not that, especially if it's like a new information that could kind of be even correct, and but it's challenging some of your current thoughts and patterns, and people get really really fucking defensive on those things. And
But that's like that's a learning stage. That's true for coaches, and it's true from other professions for sure. But like, I don't remember who wrote about these, like this the stages of development when you are learning a certain expertise. But let's say you go out of college and maybe you are a little bit insecure. That's how this gonna go now on real world, you know. But then maybe after the first year you think, oh no, I'm a graduated guy, so I know everything, and you didn't do a degree, so you don't even talk about this with me, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you come a little bit down to reality, you realize that you don't know that much about it. But then maybe you're getting better on your job, so then your ego goes up again, right?
Yeah.
And then again you do some other education, you talk with some other people, you get a little bit more humble, that's you know, and then the curve goes down a little bit, and as later on, as more you learn, more you realize that you don't know and you can improve, right? So that's a bit like the natural curve.
Yeah,
so
it is.
everybody is going to be on that stage, us included, you know, we were somehow there. So
yeah, that is. I can't remember also what the curve is called. I actually talked about this quite recently, but it's like, yeah, you think you know everything, and then you get a big drop down, and you start to maybe climb a little bit, and then it goes a little bit down and up and up. And when you really are at the expertise level, then it's maybe just slowly kind of rising a little bit, but just like slow rise, like. But like, yeah, it's funny that you a lot of people a lot of times think they know everything, and everything it's just it's ridiculous, and it's even impossible. And that's why even especially like it's hard for me to, especially as open as I am, to always change my opinion on a lot of things if I just find some better proof or better explanation for some things, like why something would work this way. Like, okay, interesting, I didn't know about that, like I could actually see it's like that. So it is just, I don't know, it's very very funny, and I can see people get really riled up about these things, and they just, oh, this motherfucker, like, who does he think he is, and all these things.
But you know, at the same time, before we talked about being able to be in the other person's shoes. And most likely at some point on our lives, we've been there.
Yeah, well, that's
being
true.
The guy that thinks that knows everything and the rest is trash.
Well, yeah.
You know, then of course depends how long you stay there.
Yes.
But
yeah, that is true. But I think I think it would be better for everyone if they can just acknowledge that they make mistakes, because everybody fucking makes mistakes, and it's just about learning from your mistakes. It's not just like it's not that big of a deal that if you fuck up sometimes, and it should be even expected, especially if you're starting to learn something new. So I don't think it's that kind of a
You just have to manage how much you fuck up, right?
Yeah. Hopefully you don't fuck up everything, and just you can kind of metaphorically, you can cut your pinky, but don't fucking slice your body in half. Just like that's a bit too much. But definitely the one of the most interesting things that I have seen you do sometimes with your clients is like especially the neurological stuff. How did you kind of go into that first, and how it might have changed your whole perspective on the complexity of the human body? Because I have just seen some things. Actually, I can't remember what was it, some Posture Pro or whatever, something like this.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
On Instagram, and talked about the visual kind of cues and exercises that you can do to even release dopamine, like with some eye movement exercises, which sounds like very weird, but I can see that, of course it can happen, maybe, but because I don't know about that like that much. But how did you get into that, and what did you kind of take away
again,
from
is about understanding the foundations, things that at the beginning look very complex, but then the foundation is not, that is quite basic actually. And that's one of the reasons why those techniques work. Is the assessment is complex, but the application is not. But getting back to how did I got into that, as you know, like last years I've been working mainly in sports medicine, like at the sports medicine clinic. So like, let's say like 80% of the persons I was seeing, they had some sort of injury. Most of them were dealing with some kind of pain like for many years, that for some reason they never got rid of it, because basically the traditional methods weren't working. And at the time I remember thinking to myself, like, having some clients and sometimes things weren't working, like, you have a client coming for a session, he feels better, but then like on the next session things are back to where they were. So you start thinking to yourself, if you reflect, must be some system, something that I'm not working on. I'm just working on the symptom, must be something bigger. And then a good friend of mine had a friend that was coming to Lisbon, and he was working in Spain at the time. And he was delivering a workshop about, I'm not remember exactly what was the title of the workshop, but it was something like neurology applied to movement, something like that. And it was like a short, was an afternoon. And I thought, okay, this looks pretty interesting. And I signed in for that. And I went there, and it was completely mind-blowing. Things that I had no idea that you could use, like how you use your vision, to reduce pain or increase your range of motion in some movement. And how the brain is connected with other stuff, even though in college you learn the nervous system and what are the nerve pathways, how that's related, how you apply force. But that workshop is very practical. Like in an afternoon, you got crazy results. Like getting incredible flexibility, like reducing pain in spots. Like one of the things I remember was like the guy put us to walk and see how was your gait, how you put your steps, like, and he asked us like, okay, now you're gonna sing like a song that emotionally gives you a good feeling, that means something for you. And suddenly the walk starts to be more smooth and more like controlled, and effortless. And the funny thing is, like, the explanation is that when you think about the brain, like if you have two areas that locally they are together, that they are touching, they're gonna influence each other, even if their function is different. So what we know about the brain is the area that controls your motor actions, basically your movement, is very close to the area that controls when you sing.
Okay.
Because singing and talking is not the same area of the brain that controls it.
But they're close.
They're close. So by stimulating that area that controls the singing, you can improve the flow of movement. And you can see on the gate. You probably saw some people walking on the street.
Well, yeah.
And you see that people that don't really move their arms.
Yes.
They just move their forearms, right?
Yeah.
But the arm is attached to the shoulder and doesn't move.
Yeah.
If you ask somebody to walk and sing something that is meaningful for them in a good way, most of people are gonna improve their gait right away, and that's one of the reasons.
Interesting. Yeah, because I've started to learn more about the how things work, and especially like those biomechanics and everything. And assessing gait is definitely like one of the things that they really focus on. All the people who preach about these things, and I've started to learn it's almost like a fucking disease. And then like you said, you see people walking in the street. Yes, I'm fucking constantly looking at their feet, their arms, and like looking. Fuck me, these people are so fucked.
And I think the ultimate proof for me was like I did that workshop, and then that guy did formal education with a company, an American company, but basically they do tours all over the world, like in Europe and America, whatever. And like in a couple months after, like I think maybe 3 or 4 months after that workshop, they were organizing a Europe tour, and they were delivering a 3-day course in Malmö, Sweden. And I thought, okay, this is something very interesting, and I signed in for that course. And it's like I think maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a month before that, I teared my ACL on my knee. So I went there, and I was like basically a volunteer to test stuff on myself. And right on the first day, like I went and I couldn't bend my knee more than 90 degrees just because my knee was so swollen. It wasn't painful, but was like
full tear.
Yeah, full tear.
Oh shit, yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I didn't feel it, because when you have a full tear, the tendon is attached from the bone, so the sensors of pain get cut off. So that's why you don't feel.
Okay, yeah.
And I remember we did like an exercise, a neuro drill, and like in a minute, I went from not bending my knee then more than 90 degrees to like almost touching my knee on my butt.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. Yeah. I wasn't expecting this to happen.
Yeah, it's fucking freaky how much you can do with like proper exercises. Even some other exercises that I have found on, especially like just basically even breathing and just so-called realignment exercises, where if you're fucking turned all the way to one side of your body and just kind of realigning you at least a little bit more straight, and how like a lot of muscles in your body just like right away like, oh, this is way better. And it's like happens like this, like one exercise basically, and you're like, what the fuck, how is this even possible? But it seems to work. And again, I think it's like even this exercise that I have in my mind, I can even show it to you later if you're interested. But it is like the guy said, it's basically about building a neural connection with these certain muscles. When you're doing this, we want these muscles to fire at the same time.
And and it's actually more than that.
Yeah.
Because you have to see your brain, the nervous system as or better saying your whole body as a ranking order. So before you think about muscles, about joints, you have to think about the brain.
Yeah.
Because your brain is going to be all the time during your life, during your every second or even millisecond. What the brain is doing is every time is assessing if something is a threat to you or not.
Yeah.
And if for some reason it thinks that is a threat, it's gonna get into a sort of defensive mechanism, and it's going to reduce your ability to produce force and to have movement.
Yeah. And
And if
very
you
easy example
yes.
of that's like when your spine curves, it's gonna shut down your force production.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you work on, let's say that, for example, we were talking about the vision before, right? You have muscles on your eyes as well. And most of us, let's say, even if you are a pilot and you have the called 20/20 vision,
yeah, like a perfect vision. Yeah.
That means that you can see something very well.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean that some action of your vision are like very optimized, because you don't get that assessed on those tests. So one of the main feedbacks we have all the time is the visual feedback, unless you are blind.
Well, yeah,
right?
yes.
But otherwise, that's the main thing. So you can imagine how that environment reading affects how your body stays in a certain position, how you do force.
Yeah.
Because, for example, like, let's say a lot of people have, for example, like a stronger eye.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah.
So let's say, for example, my dominant eye is my left. That means that when I want to see something on my right side, I might turn my hand to the right side.
Right? Yeah, so that you can actually
yes.
use your
So
dominant,
that means that my left eye is gonna converge. It's gonna look on the other way around inside. And when you think about posture, let's say that someone is turning their torso to the right side. You might do the all stretches you want. You may work more the obliques or the postural muscles.
Yeah.
If you don't work on the vision, it's going to be very hard to undo that. Because you're telling your brain all the time that the center is not aligned with your nose. It's probably more on your right side. So that's going to shift everything you do.
Yeah. What is it about actually? Like, why is it like what makes the other eye stronger than the other one?
Well, can be a lot of stuff, but can be just that your eye converge more to one side than another, for example.
You know, like the positioning, or like, because I think that's like one of the things that they measure even in the opticians day, when you're like, I just got new glasses like 3 months ago, some months ago. And they measured where is the center of your eye and everything, so that they can put the lens correction in the right place.
Yeah.
So,
but one thing is what happens when your eye is like kind of resting or you are reaching a target. Another thing is when your eyes are moving with your head still.
Yeah.
Another thing is if your eyes are able to stay in a target when you move your head. Because there you are working with two different reflexes. So those are things that are controlled in a, let's say, almost automated way. You don't think about it. There's a system behind called the cerebellum, for example, that coordinates those processes. And the cool thing is that when you think about, let's compare our body with a laptop. The muscles, the forearms, the joints are the hardware, right? But those capacity of your brain, for example, the cerebellum, is your software.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is that some time ago we thought that we couldn't improve the software. But you can train the software.
Yeah.
So with this kind of exercise, you can calibrate your software. The thing is, you need to do a good assessment and understand what areas of your brain, what are their functions, and what can you improve there.
Okay.
That's the most complex part is probably assess.
Yeah.
Because you need to have a certain know-how to understand what produces what, to know what you're going to change.
Yeah.
And the other part is that each person has, in a way, a different brain. So, for example, like, let's say in a more traditional approach, let's say you have someone that has knee pain. Like, you kind of know that you have to check the hip because might be something up to it, right?
Yeah.
And you more or less have sort of a protocol, a biomechanic protocol. On the brain, if I do a certain drill with you, it may produce a response. But if I do it with a different person, the response might be
a little bit different,
even though there's sort of a guideline, right?
Yeah. It's the same with other exercises, I found out also. So everybody responds a little bit differently, maybe, but there's a rough kind of guideline or path that usually happens when you do this. But
and in this kind of line of work, there's a theory that's called the bucket theory. So imagine a bucket filled with water. Imagine that the water is by like a certain mark on the bucket. So every time you are walking with that bucket, if something happens and let's say you are walking somewhere else and some rocks are falling, and the rock fall into the bucket, that threshold goes up and the water may spill off the bucket. So that happens with the body and the brain. Every time your brain understands that something is a threat, that bucket line of water goes up. And when the water spill off the buckets, that's when you have a reaction. Maybe you have pain on your shoulder. Maybe you get dizzy. Maybe you lose some coordination.
And then it's like the bucket is flipping over, or the water is flipping over.
And then, of course, that threshold to feel uncomfort, to feel pain, it gets very minimal. The minimum thing gets the bucket flipping water. So the threshold is very small.
And is the threshold what is the limit, and what happens when the threshold? How can you kind of like measure maybe what is someone's threshold with this stuff?
You have to test it out. Let's say, for example, if I'm doing some visual drills with eyes with you, for example, some things I'm gonna pay attention is like how tired your eyes feel. If you feel dizzy, if, for example, you may have a headache. So I'm gonna start with a low intensity exercise. Enough reps, adjust the speed, for example, that we are doing, even the range of motion. And I'm gonna ask you, how do you feel? If you feel good, and I test something out and you have a better outcome, okay, now we can go for the next level. If I'm doing an exercise with your eyes and you feel dizzy, well, maybe it's too much.
Okay.
Because the thing with this kind of work, you have always to test and retest. Let's see, for example, I'm doing an exercise with your eyes, and I want to improve your overhead motion. You reach over your head, for example.
Your hand going above your
I might be doing some exercise with your eyes because there's a very strong connection between the cervical spine and nerves that go across, and that are actually physically connecting the eye and the shoulder, for example. So I may do an exercise with your eye, and I test and see if your mobility is better. So I want to see if you feel dizzy, if your eyes are tired, and if your mobility improves.
All right. And then you would go through something next and something harder, and the next thing should always give you a better result on the...
Yes.
Okay.
That's the cool thing about this technique is like you don't wait a week to see if it gets better. The difference is instantaneous. Or otherwise, maybe I chose the wrong drill. Maybe the intensity was too hard and I'm shutting down your system. So you have to get some training to understand how you apply the stimulus, basically.
That makes sense. Also, even regarding other things, like I found that in a way the best exercises that you do, they should give basically almost, some of them give definitely like instant results, but some are like, it should be basically pretty instant. Maybe you chose it again, like you said, a little bit wrong. Maybe they're performing a little bit wrong. The reasons can be like in most of those things, like breathing exercises, especially when you're trying to work on your, let's say, rib mechanics or whatever. The more tense you are on all these things, then they work way less. Like you should be relaxed and focusing on certain things only, not just like fucking being stiff as fuck, because then the stuff doesn't work. And it's a huge difference on like maybe how well it works depending on how well you can actually execute it. And then you need to kind of, like you said, find the proper exercise for each person to actually give them kind of benefits. How, like, of course you don't have to go through the whole thing, but how would you assess someone's eyes? Like you said, you mentioning are they getting dizzy, are their eyes getting tired, or do they feel good? Is there anything else like
if you think about maybe like a very easy protocol, that you want to test with somebody, there's maybe like 3 or 4 moves that in initial assessment I'll go through, because basically those are reflexes that you, at least you should, or maybe should is a strong word, but you would like to be able to perform. And we are not we are not talking only about performing if you want to train just on your normal life, You don't need to be in a gym or being an athlete to benefit from this kind of thing. Anybody can. But I would say the main thing is, if you have a target in front of you that is moving just forward and backward on a straight line, you should be able to focus it with both eyes. Most people can't, and we are just not aware of it. Then if you had your head still, you should be able to horizontally follow a target with both eyes at the same time, without moving your head. And it's much harder than you think. I would say that, well, from my experience, probably 7 out of 10 can do that actually very well. And the other thing would be probably, if you stay still with your feet together, keep your head still, move your eyes, and don't lose your balance.
I think we actually tried some of these out at some point. So very quickly.
And then I would add one more that is very even easier, and it's going to be surprising for a lot of people. It's just stand in one foot and close your eyes. Because that's going to tell you a lot of information how the vision and the inner ear is connected.
Like your balance and everything, is it only relying basically on your vision, or how much is it relying on your vision? Is it,
well, for most of people, the most, because we are seeing something all the time.
Of course.
So you don't stimulate that much your inner ear. That is basically your own GPS. Tells your body where you are in space. It's like because I can think about this through also robotics, because though it's that's what I studied a little bit, and or studied in school. But that's like you can give a robot a machine vision, and then it should get, or it can maneuver differently depending on what it sees with the actual camera that it's looking at it, and it's connected to the thing. Like, let's say, just for example, like you said, it was nice when you talked about this, because I was like, right away, you have the software that is your brain, and then the hardware is, like in this case, or the software in the other case is a computer, and then the hardware is a robotic arm, let's say, or something very similar. Like, let's say that it has like a gripper, and it can grip things and move things into a different place. So the vision can give it already a lot of things, but it can also operate very well when it is given a force sensor. Force sensor is basically, look, like you said a little bit about the ear, and it's giving you like where you are located in space. And it has a kind of similar thing, of course, like a human being. Like, even though if you close your eyes or whatever, I keep it there. I don't need to see that it's there. I can know, because my own body tells me that my finger is there behind me. I can touch it without looking at it, or like basically find it right away, because my body knows where it is. And by just applying force to your environment, or like even with the robot, if it has the force sensor, it can kind of make decisions based on what it feels and where does it kind of sense that it's in the environment. Especially if you combine the two, then it's a really good thing, because it then can see where it is and apply force by the what it gets from the force sensor, basically from touch and from the vision.
So it's kind of really interesting that you can kind of, well, of course, these both work in humans because we're always trying to emulate human actions basically when you're doing robotics. But yeah, it's very kind of interesting, and that gives you details about the software.
Because it's quite interesting when you were asking what you can test, and we were talking mainly about vision and inner ear, right? But with this kind of approach, neural approach, you have basically three systems that you want to assess. You have the vision, obviously. You have the inner ear that kind of controls the balance connected with the vision. But then you have the perception. And the perception is exactly what you were saying. Like you know that you have your hand behind your head and you can touch in the exact point.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most powerful systems our body have. Is actually on this kind of approach is the first thing you test. Is your perception. And probably all of you like have the experience, or even in your home, that you know very well. And you know when you have a big hallway. And the lights are off, it's fully dark. And you feel a little bit, not dizzy, but what's the best word? Like a bit